What are some of the other things that are really have your attention and interest?
Well, we'll go back to the downtown. Should be, I think it's still kind of up in the air of what we should be doing. You have $7 million for South Water Street. I kind of look at that, and we have a huge decision to make. Should we be, keeping everything downtown, which is what I would have, which is what I have sort of advocated and thought for 20 years, except that there's not very many people downtown. There's five or six people left, and so the question is.
Well, isn't there actually a bylaw?
There is.
That says that the town employees, for the most part, shall be within the core district.
Yeah, there is, and which the planning went out there temporary. That was a temporary move.
And there was some question whether the finance department was in or out of the core district.
Yeah. And the lawyers can argue it either direction.
That's right.
If they're arguing, if they're arguing for us or for the administration, then sure they're in.
But we heard the argument at last night's selectmen's meeting by a citizen that the planning and land use groups stay out of town for ease of access, and they have a point.
I think they do, except if we look out 30 and 40 years, maybe their point isn't as valid, because right now, sure, it's kind of easy, but think of the peak of the summer. It takes me 45 minutes to an hour to get from Cliff Road out to there. And when you looked at the traffic numbers, if we don't limit cars or do something like that, which I advocated for and I never got anywhere, but if we don't actually do something like that, then it's going to be even worse. And the worst areas were Old South Road. That whole area was going to be locked up tight. So you kind of be careful what you wish for. Downtown is, you're able to get to downtown from a bunch of different directions.
Right.
The Mid-Island, it could be
certainly from the west side of town. Getting to Mid-Island is
but it's going to be hard from Sconset. It's going to be hard from Surfside. It really is. I mean, when you looked at the numbers, the projections that we had 15 years ago, and they come true now on the peak weekends.
Right.
And I think putting all our people out there it's not gonna. It may not be what everyone hopes for.
I don't know that anybody has a really good handle on how many additional vehicles there are here in the summer. We can look at the Steamship Authority's reports, and they show the number of trips, which means basically they're people going to the island and people coming from the island. That should wash out.
Well, they used to net them. They used to net them out, and it used to be on the, NP&EDC report monthly or quarterly.
Right.
I haven't checked to see if they
well,
still do it.
their report, the Steamship Authority's report, and I get that, is just trips.
Right.
Trips to the Vineyard, trips to Nantucket, cars, trucks, so forth.
Right.
And it showed a increase. If you basically divide in half the increased number for this year so far, year to date, it's about 400 more cars that have came to the island and left, presumably.
Right. Well, back when I paid a little closer attention to it, each house represented, I think, 2.8 cars or 2.4 cars, something like that. A little bit over 2. And you'd say, well, there's only one car, there's only 2, but every house has to be, a lot of them have to be serviced. So, we're probably back to building 100 homes a year at least.
Right.
So that, that 100 more.
That's not going to continue that much longer because there's no room to put them.
No.
They may be rebuilt.
Yeah, there's rebuilds and there's second dwellings. There's a lot going on.
I know there is.
Drive Cliff Road to go around the corner.
That's right.
There's a lot going on, and so I think that we have to realize, and we're taught, we need the other issue would be affordable housing. We need to figure that out, and
by affordable, you don't mean just traditionally affordable, right?
I think we need a mid-range as well.
Mid-range is
I think what is the covenant? 150% of median income or something. Yeah, so it's like $120,000 or $30,000. I think affordable's 60 or 80, depending on where you're in the house. Yeah.
So and clearly, when the town is recruiting people from off island, the town runs into this.
Right.
Where people have trouble finding housing.
Right. And I think the town is hitting the reality that we as a town need to do something, at least with the seasonal. And that would be a start. And I think Libby seems to be supportive of, doing something maybe at two fairgrounds or, maybe somewhere else, but doing some sort of housing for seasonal employees because they need that to manage the town.
Well, I know, that's one of the issues that has come up in the draft of the master plan for the airport, providing seasonal housing for not only airport employees, but other town employees. And Tom Rafter's been trying to get the department heads to provide him with some information as to what kind of need there is.
Right.
And, but it's weird because not this past summer, but the summer before, the airport has one house out by the ocean, Madison Valley, and it holds about 8 people.
Right.
I mean, it is a dorm basically, but it holds about 8 people. And I can't remember whether it was last summer or the summer before. There was only one who signed up to live there.
Wow.
And we tried to see if they wanted, some lifeguards wanted to be there and so forth. It didn't turn out that there were, so it ended up with just 1 or 2 people.
Wow.
Now, the last couple of years, it's been more crowded, but more utilized.
Yeah. Well, I think a couple of years ago, you could find a place and move back to not being able to do that again.
That's right.
I think that might have been part of it. The other thing is I find, because I have a couple dorms, I find kids, there's just changed the attitude toward it. People want their privacy. They, I think it's partly the internet. Everyone gets to choose what they want to watch, and they want their own place, and they want their own space. And, I used to be able to have 12, don't tell zoning, but we used to have 12 or 15 kids in a house and a van outside with a couple guys living in it and showering inside, and a couple of my soccer buddies. And now, we have 7 or 8, and they think it's crowded. And everyone has their own room. So, so when the town we've talked about this at the selectmen's meeting. When the town says, okay, we're going to do seasonal housing, they have to take into effect. Like they have to think about what is it that people want. Do you really want a 30-unit building, or are you better off with 5 with 6 small bedrooms, 5 cottages?
Sort of like college suites where you might have 4 singles and a double.
Yeah, you do something like that, and do you do it, more in keeping? How do you, a lot of what I think makes Nantucket special is that we're an urban environment. It's a, sort of what people call new urbanism.
Right.
And so, but then you drive in certain areas that doesn't look right because police station being a key example. It's suburban. It's not in keeping with Nantucket.
That's right.
So we drive by it and we think something isn't right. We may not be able to put a finger on it, but it's not right. So we want to make sure if we're doing more buildings there that we, mitigate what we've sort of fixed what we've done, or if we're doing employee housing or, dorms and things that they fit in. The row houses fit in on Orange Street going up Orange on the right.
That's right.
And there's, right around the corner, I think it's corner of South Mill around here, there's a house that moved from Sherburne that's 2 or 3 family. You'd never know it. It fits right in.
Right.
So yeah, there's a way to design it and do it where it fits in Nantucket.
Yeah, and you have to have some flexibility in your zoning rules and so forth to accommodate that.
Exactly.
But one of the things I found out recently that I didn't know was there's no provision to allow any kind of hotel or inn or anything out near the airport.
Right.
It's all, the one that's there is grandfathered, and no others can get there. I don't know what the rationale for that was. But the area around, that they're trying to develop out at Valero's and across the street in the Glowacki property, might be a great place for something like that. But it's not allowed under the current rules.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure it would be a great place. That's a tough.
Well, traffic and so forth, but it's at least
it's a tough commercial corridor. There's a lot. There's a few businesses that have done well there, but there's a lot more that it's a tough draw, and I think partly is traffic.
Yes, well, traffic clear, and then you have the whole issue of the bylaw against turning lanes and 4-lane roads and so forth, and that's part of Nantucket too. But do we at some point have to compromise a little bit on that?
Well, that may be I think that may be the place that ends up being widened. If anything happens with all the stuff, with everything that's going on there, that's where I think you'll see turning lanes and or you'll see a median down the middle, and you know, I think that'll be our, you know, 132 or something at the rate we're going.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
The other issue on housing is you have to be careful to not ask people what they want, because if you ask what someone wants, they're going to say, "Well, I want a 3-bedroom and
Well, Sherburne Commons is a classic example of
and
that.
the school housing. You know, they all wanted 3-bedroom, this and that. Okay, then you build it, it costs a lot more money, and then you say, okay, it's going to cost you this much rent, and they didn't really want that to begin with.
Right.
So, and there's a way, and I think also smaller units, and you know, is in a way a good thing for a management tool, for cost, and for a management tool. You don't want these people to necessarily live there forever. We want to set it up so there's a place to start. You know, you start working for the town as a seasonal employee, there's a place to go, and you live with a few other seasonal employees, and then maybe you move into a covenant house with 1 or 2 bedrooms, and eventually you've saved enough, or you do move into some other type, you know, tier of housing. I think there has to be sort of a holistic
But
look
you also
at it.
you read in the American press that people are not wanting to buy anymore. They want to rent a nice place rather than have the burden of a mortgage and so forth. And you know, so who knows? But you're right. I think you try to figure out what's best, and then take it from there. Let me change the subject a little bit. What do you think the town is doing enough in terms of social services in the community? I mean, it really has outsourced everything.
It has.
It hasn't increased its budget for Social Security.
Right.
I mean, for social services at all in the last few years, to speak of. And I just wondered what your thoughts were on that.
I think we could I think we should be trying to do a better job. I think it's, you know, it's a difficult, you know, difficult topic. My take on it is that certain things have been crowded out. You know, the budget has grows, you know, X% a year, but it's already taken. And so certain things, library being one, social services being another, they should, you know, if it's a line item in the budget, it should be growing 1.5%, or 2.5%. It should be going up a little bit, and it stayed flat because it's been needed elsewhere. So until we kind of, you know, get control of that issue, which is, as you know, is not easy.
Right.
I don't see there being a lot more, you know, for some of those issues.
Yeah, unless there's a crisis. I mean, I don't know exactly what's happened with Family and Children's Services and how they've worked through that, but there was a time when they were talking about asking the town for a big infusion of money. And, you know, a lot of these organizations, I think, operate very much on the edge.
They do.
And
Yes, and some of it, I think, how do I say it? Some of them, you know, I went to the Nantucket Project this year, and there was talk about how some of the nonprofits have to become more business-like in how they, you know, how they interact with other, you know, network with other nonprofits, about how they raise money, about how they view and spend their money. And so there's, you know, which I think was well received by the nonprofits that were there, and you know, they talked to
the
some
ones
people
who weren't there who need the
well, no, there's some of the ones that you, without naming names, some of the ones that you're talking about were there, and so I think that, you know, I think in Child and Human Services, I think it's in better hands right now. I think they're going the right direction.
Well, I think we probably covered enough for one time, but I appreciate your coming in and
No, great.
get you back sooner than last time.
Okay, well, that would be great.
Thanks, Matt Fee.
All right, thank you.